Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Church of Christ and I teach theology. This is a podcast on the StarCrest Production Network at sqpn.com. Today we're on day 279. We're covering Presbyterium Ordinis 7 on priests and bishops should be united. My notes there just said 67 because I guess I forgot to delete the 6 from yesterday. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican or frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. The last few days been on chapter 2, the ministry of priests, which will continue. Yesterday we concluded section 1 with the idea of the priesthood being the ruling or governing aspect. And we noted priests are given spiritual power to lead and should use this to lead the missionary community centered around the Eucharistic celebration. Today, we're going to start section 2 of the second chapter, and this is on priest's relationship with others, and it's really going to be on the relationship with the bishop here. So, the union between bishops and priests is important and relies on mutual respect. So, paragraph 7 has 4 subparagraphs. We're going to read them in 3 parts. 7a is about priests and bishops share in a single priesthood and should show this unity. B, bishops should care for priests and have concern for them. What else did I write? I thought I wrote something else. Anyways. And have concern for them and pay attention to them. And then C and D are about priests must have respect and obedience for the local bishop and be united more broadly with bishops and priests around the world. So let's get straight into 7a. A. All priests in union with bishops share in the one and same priesthood and ministry of Christ, that the very unity of their consecration and mission requires their hierarchical communion with the order of bishops. At times, in an excellent manner, they manifest this communion in liturgical concelebration as joined to the bishop when they celebrate the Eucharistic sacrifice. Therefore, by reason of the gift of the Holy Spirit, which is given to priests and holy orders, bishops regard them as necessary helpers and counselors in the ministry and in the role of teaching, sanctifying, and nourishing the people of God. Already in the recent age of the Church, we find liturgical texts proclaiming this with insistence. As when with solemnity, they solemnly call upon God to pour out upon the candidate priest ordination the spirit of grace and counsel, so with a pure heart they may help and govern the people of God. Just as in the desert the spirit of Moses was spread abroad among the minds of 70 prudent men, and using them as helpers among the people, he easily governed countless multitudes. So this number is really about how we have this one priesthood as priests and bishops. We're all priests of Jesus Christ. We all share in this single priesthood of the incarnate man, Jesus Christ. And as priests, we need to be united to those who have the fullness, those who are in the hierarchy, the bishops, to exercise our priesthood. And we show this union in the liturgy. One of the things mentioned here was concelebration. I don't know if everyone who's a layperson understands this. Concelebration is when you have more than one priest celebrating the same Mass at the same Mass, and the ones who are not the main celebrant are called concelebrants. This happens in Holy Week for the Chrism Mass, where the bishop consecrates the oils for every parish for the year. Beyond that, it happens at different times and places, oftentimes in the Vatican or at big gatherings, or, for example, in religious communities, things like that. But here it's talking about with the bishop. Oftentimes, if the bishop comes to do the confirmations, the local parish priest will concelebrate. So, and this is the unity in the liturgy. And unity is, what is it through? Through the Holy Spirit. And this unity is a real unity in action, both in the spiritual aspect and the practical aspect. And it's not just the kind of theory. So moving on, 7b says that bishops should care for the priests and pay attention to them, listen to them. So let's read it. B. Therefore, on account of this communion in the same priesthood and ministry, bishops should regard priests as their brothers and friends and be concerned as far as they are able for their material and especially for their spiritual well-being. For above all, upon the bishops rests the heavenly responsibility for the sanctity of their priests. Therefore, they should exercise the greatest care in the continual formation of their priests. They should gladly listen to their priests, indeed consult them, and engage in dialogue with them in those matters which concern the necessities of pastoral work and the welfare of the diocese. In order to put this into effect, there should be, in a manner suited to today's conditions and necessities, with a structure and norms determined by law, a body or center of priests representing all priests. This representative body, by its advice, will be able to give the bishop effective assistance in the administration of the diocese. So here, this subparagraph is really directed towards the bishops. Hey, you have to respect your priests. You have to listen to them. You have to make sure they're holy. And how are they going to make sure they're holy unless they understand where they are? Because holiness, for those type of things, for spiritual direction, for someone who's direct, requires two things. Where is the person and the goal? And if you know where they are and what the goal is, obviously the goal we know, heaven and the resurrection, then we can lay out a path. But if you don't know where they are, we can't really lay out that path. And they also need to look for priests to have continual formation. It's really good. You see a lot of times dioceses will have convocations where they have 2-3 days of classes or mini retreaters, things like that, to help the priests continue in their formation. And it's good to encourage them. I know in my own community, it's generally encouraged to do, like 10 hours a month, 10, 20 hours a month of reading or other kind of watching informative videos or things like that so that we continually increase our formation. Obviously, being somebody who studies in the seminary, I do more than 10 hours a month of reading most months and things like that. I've lost track. I'm in a particular position being a theology professor. And then we need to listen, the bishops need to listen to them, engage in dialogue. And it's also important to have a group of priests, which will often be called like the presbyteral council or something like that, where a bunch of the priests in diocese, the bishop will consult them on certain things. And even canon law says they need to consult them on certain things. And other things, it's often good to consult them for important decisions so that the bishop has the prudence of all these priests who often have more experience in the particular diocese, because often the bishop comes from outside. So like if you had a bishop, well, I'll just take a case right here. So the Bishop of Norwich, Connecticut, just started in April or May. It was right around the end of April, beginning of May, he became a bishop to do Norwich. He had spent his whole life in Worcester, Massachusetts, pretty much beforehand. He was a lawyer, then a priest, then the vicar general, so the top priest in the diocese in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is neighboring to Norwich, Connecticut, just north of it in Massachusetts. And now he's the bishop. And now there's priests on that council who have been in that diocese for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they can have things about the particulars of that diocese that he wouldn't know, even being next door, because there's often little particular things in each place. And it's very helpful to have that for a good pastoral ministry. Moving on to our final section, C and D, priests must have respect and obedience for the local bishop and be united more broadly with bishops and priests. So C here is kind of the mere reflection of B, and then D is just a more broad point. So let's read it. C, priests never losing sight of the fullness of the priesthood, which the bishops enjoy, must respect in them authority of Christ the supreme shepherd. They must therefore stand by their bishops in sincere charity and obedience. This priestly obedience, imbued with the spirit of cooperation, is based on the very sharing of the episcopal ministry which is conferred on priests, both through the sacrament of orders and the canonical mission. D, this union of priests with the bishops is the more necessary today, since in our present age, for various reasons, apostolic undertakings must necessarily not only take up many forms, but frequently extend even beyond the boundaries of one parish or diocese. No priest, therefore, can on his own accomplish his mission in a satisfactory way. He can do so only by joining forces with other priests under the direction of the church authorities. So this idea is very clear here. Priests need to respect the bishop. They need to have obedience at the ordination. They promise obedience to their bishop and his successors, and diocesan priests are to our superiors as religious priests. And the bishop has the fullness of the priesthood, and so there is that spiritual aspect, but there's also a practical aspect. The bishop is going to assign you as the associate pastor, or as a school chaplain, or as working in the diocesan offices, things like that as a priest. And then we have obedience, the obedience in general, and then obedience comes from orders, but also those specific missions, like I mentioned. Okay, can you be the associate pastor here or something like that, right? That's the kind of thing you would not be surprised if a bishop was asking a priest. So, finally, in D, it talks about this wider union between bishops and priests beyond just the local bishop and his priests that are needed for the apostolate as the apostolate spreads throughout today. Thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. This is a listener-supported podcast, and you can donate to help StarQuest produce it and other great podcasts at sqpn.com/give. You can give one-time monthly to the StarQuest Patreon. Tomorrow we will continue with the next paragraph of Presbyterium Ordinis, which is paragraph 8 on the brotherhood of the priesthood. Please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which will provide a blueprint for the Catholic Church. If you want more information on the podcast, such as playlists for individual documents and a reading plan, go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X.